And we'd like to say a very hearty good afternoon to everyone who's joining us live on YouTube or the recorded version. And this is the Township of Douro-Dummer and our regular council meeting of December 15th. Matter of fact, it's our final council meeting before the new year. And in case you are not here at the end of the meeting, may I take the opportunity on behalf of all of our council, all of our staff, to wish you a very happy holiday and a very Merry Christmas as well. Okay, so welcome to our meeting. I've reminded you that this is live on YouTube and is being live streamed as we speak. The closed session part of the meeting will not be live streamed. The remainder of the meeting will be reflected in the minutes, which are the official record of the meeting. And we'll be holding the meeting just as we would, well, at least we'll try our best, in our council chambers. And we hope, beyond hope, that sometime in 2021, we will indeed be back in our council chambers. I'd like to call the roll and introduce the members of council who are with us tonight. First of all, Deputy Mayor Moher is here. Carl, a big wave. Thank you. Councillor Watt. Councillor Landsman. And Councillor Watson. We have a number of our staff are here as well who will be appearing as we need them. Martina Chade Hartwig is here, our temporary CAO. Martina, welcome. Our temporary treasurer, Paul Kramer. Our chief building official, Brian Fawcett. Our fire chief, Chuck Peterson. Manager of Public Works, Jake Condon. Our senior administrative assistant, Vanessa Sweeting. And Nicole Zenner is also with us. She's pushing the buttons, our administrative assistant, legislative services. So we will be hearing from staff as we progress through the meeting. So I will officially call the meeting to order, and we respectfully acknowledge that we're on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mishi-Saugig and Eshebe, and we offer our gratitude to the First Nations peoples for their care for and their teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. Would you join us, please, for a moment of silent reflection? Thank you very much. I remind any members of council, if you have a pecuniary interest, to please state that now or just before we deal with it. Sheila, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. No, I do not have pecuniary interest, but I must advise you, I will have to leave the meeting for 5 minutes or so shortly, and I will turn my video off while I'm away. Thank you.
Our staff will make note of that for the record. The agenda that's before us, December 15th, I will be making a couple of order changes just to coincide with the subject matter. But other than that, I would like a motion, please, to adopt the agenda, please. Mr. Moher and Councillor Watson. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Adoption of the minutes, a special meeting we had on the 25th of November and on the 1st of December, our regular meeting. A motion to adopt those minutes, please. Sheila and Tom. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Is there any business arising out of those minutes? Carl?
Yes, one item. I believe the Edwards Pet report will be coming to council very shortly. I just wondered if Martina might be able to provide us with an update.
Martina, can you address that subject, please?
Yeah, there will be a report coming on January 5th in the new year.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the previous minutes? Okay, seeing no hands. We are moving to item 8, and that is delegations, petitions, presentations, or public meetings. So we do have a public meeting, and the subject is the Building Code Act and the building permit fees. And this is an official public meeting. All those who would like to comment or ask questions are invited to do so. Could I have a motion, please, to open that public meeting? Sheila and Carl, all in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. We are now in a public meeting. And I will ask Brian to do his presentation, please.
Thank you. So this subject matter has come to council a few times already. So I'll skip the detail-oriented stuff, but we'll go just a high-level overview. So every year we review our building permit fees in accordance with the anticipated costs of service. This year is just a little unique. We're going to be changing the method of calculation from a square foot basis to a value-based approach. And we've determined that based on our annual expenses estimated to be $364,000 for 2021, and our annual revenue not to exceed that the fee needs to be set at $14.50 for most projects to provide adequate funds. And the public notice was served 15 days prior to this meeting in accordance with the Building Code Act. This public meeting is being held in accordance with the Building Code Act, and no comments were received prior to this meeting.
Okay, thank you, Brian. That is the facts. As this being a public meeting, does council have any questions for clarity before I open it up to any public comment who might be with us? No comments. Is there anyone, Martina, I'll ask you, is there any member of the public on the screen over the subject?
Mr. Mayor, there's no members of public who had requested to speak on this topic.
Okay, and plenty of notice was given, and we've received no input. Any questions from council before we move on? Seeing no hands, I will ask for a motion to close the public meeting. Tom and Sheila, all in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Okay, Brian, I think we will juggle the agenda just a wee bit, and we'll go to item 11.1, which is the bylaw to amend bylaw 2007-37 about construction, demolition, and change of use permits. That is the bylaw that is before us. Would anyone care to move the bylaw? Carl?
With the extensive study that we've gone through with this, having seen it 2 or 3 times, I would move the bylaw.
Yeah, this is, for those of you watching, this is nothing new. We've been working on this for quite some time, and there's been ample of opportunity for comment. Is there a seconder to that motion, please? Tom? Is there any comment on the motion? All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Okay, thank you very much. Now we are going to move ahead to delegations. And as is always the case, we ask that our delegations try their very best to say with the 10-minute time limit, if you possibly can. And we will have a delegation now with Carlos Daniel. Carlos, I hope I've got the name right. And
Yes.
this is representing the Moody Drive residents. And we certainly understand your plight. So Carlos, we will turn it over to you for your 10-minute delegation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me. Thank you, Major Jones, Councillor Landsman, Councillor Watson, Deputy Mayor Mohar, Councillor Watt, and also to you, Martina. First of all, I want to resume a bit what happened. So on November the 27th, around noon, on our completely fenced-in and gated property, 4 persons were attacked by the neighbor's dog and our 2 shelties too. So we had our shelties playing outside with Drew and Marge Rippach, both around 70, 80 years old, when the neighbor's dogs came not from his property, but from the other neighbor's property. They jumped into the lake onto our property and directly went to kill our dogs without any other intent. I was sitting inside, I saw it, I automatically ran out. My wife heard the screaming, so she also came out, and we were 4 adults trying to fight this big dogs, neighbors' dogs, trying to separate them from our dogs. But they were really so focused, really on biting them into their interior parts. It was impossible to separate them until Drew, with a snow shovel, managed to hit one of the dogs. So then they left to our gate. It was closed, but one finally escaped through our fence. It's incredible how he managed to get under the fence, but they are so strong, it's unbelievable. And the other dog was still on our property trying to get out, but he couldn't until the owner of the dog came. He opened our gate, took out his second dog, went to his property, and since then, we've never heard even an apologize. Yeah, our 2 Shelties, luckily, now are going to survive. We are not sure if the young Sheltie, Heidi, will ever be running again. I apologize, but it's still very hard. And the neighbor's dogs are still there. So they can jump off this self-made fence anytime. They can escape, as they have done in a lot of times before, as said by the owner himself. Those dogs are kept in the kitchen the whole day. They are left out in the morning for 5 to 10 minutes. They are fighting each other. So they have never been socialized, the dogs. They are the whole day sitting in the small kitchen. When they are left outside, they are just trying, it sounds like they are killing each other. So it's really a fearful situation. Right now, we are prisoners in our own house. We cannot go out. I go out only even to bring out the garbage with a hammer and a bear spray. So the dogs are completely traumatized. They don't walk away 2-3 meters from our side. We can't even be in our garden. And what we know from dog specialists, so they came to kill these dogs, and they will need to finish what they have started. They have the smell of blood of 3 adult people. They have bitten Marge Rippach in her arm. My wife was bitten in her hand. We have a hand specialist meeting tomorrow. Her thumb is broken. I have 2 bites in my right hand. So it's incredible. If we weren't be there, our dogs would be dead by now. The problem is that these dogs, they have been escaping a lot of times. The owner is proud that they escape because they need to run away. But we have a lot of small children. We have a lot of dogs in the neighborhood. We have the lakeside family cottages. It's the neighbor of the dog's owner's place. And you have Lakefield College, with a lot of students, close to 400 students and staff members and dogs, what the dogs run into. I know that we are killing coyotes, but we are allowing people to have more dangerous dogs there, and they can escape tomorrow again. Unfortunately, the police has closed the case. So they are waiting till the court case on the 8th of March. And until then, I don't know what will happen there. We cannot go outside without fear. Not us, not our neighbors. And so that's why 2 of the neighbors started this petition, really to take the dogs away. don't wait until the next attack happens. And if you talk to dog specialists who know about dangerous dogs, who know about dogs, they have very clear recommendations what needs to be done. Number one, they need to be taken away. They need to be separated because those dogs, they act together. They've never been separated. They've never been with other dogs, and they are hunting dogs. And the next attack will happen. It can be tomorrow, it can be in January, whenever it is. So this needs to be changed, and we need to feel safe in our property, in the neighborhood, for the children that go to Lakeville College, for everyone. So I think this is what I wanted to share with you. And thanks a lot for your understanding. We need your support. We need your help.
Well, Carlos, there's absolutely no question that you have our support, you have our understanding. I feel so bad about this, as do all members of council. It's terrible. Some of us have dogs too. I have a small dog as well, and I would be absolutely devastated. I know that.
I think we have been every day to the vet.
I know. It's one of these terrible, terrible, terrible situations.
And
what we're going to do, I'm going to actually ask for a motion to officially receive your petition. That's why it's on the record and it's on the books. Deputy Mayor Moher and Councillor Watson. So that is the motion to receive your petition. Now, what I'm going to do is ask Brian Fawcett, is our chief building official, and I'm going to ask Brian to talk about this situation right from day one. I want to hear what has been done. I want to hear what hasn't been done. I want to hear what the police have had to say. I want to hear about what our bylaws say and what we can do to enforce and to increase our bylaws as well. And underlying all this thing is that it is now before the courts, this matter. And believe me, that ties our hands in a way that we don't want to be tied. It's the way it is. Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you, and for the benefit of everyone, let's hear the whole story of this situation from the township's perspective, at least. Go ahead. Certainly.
Thank you, Your Worship. So backing up to provide some context in regards to dog licensing and animal control, in 2019, the Ontario Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals was involved in a court decision that basically had them have their police powers removed unless they wanted to undertake a number of steps. So what ended up happening in June of 2019 is the OSPCA stopped doing animal control for the province, and that their services, animal cruelty, large animal control, exotic animal control, dog control, got broken up into a number of pieces. Those pieces involve a number of stakeholders now. You have the Provincial Animal Welfare Society, which is a ministry-run organization. You have local municipalities, which is like us. You have the local stakeholders, animal control services. For us, that's the Peterborough Humane Society. And then you have the provincial enforcement, which is for us as the Ontario Provincial Police. On the subject of dogs, we have an existing dog licensing bylaw requiring licensing and registration of dogs. And that bylaw is actually dated from 2001. And the bylaw served its purpose for the licensing and control of dogs within the township. And those licensing fees are collected annually based on the number of dogs that a person has. Each dog has to be tagged and licensed. And those fees are collected for the purposes of offsetting our animal control expenses, which we utilize an outside contractor, which is the Peterborough Humane Society, to provide animal control services. So in this post-2019 update, we as a municipality have been working on a new animal control bylaw which is to amalgamate our existing dog licensing registration bylaw, as well as our exotic animal bylaw, which is from 2004, which is also quite dated, and implementing a few new measures for large animal control that have been hoisted on or downloaded onto the municipality as well. Large animal control generally is, when I say that, I'm speaking about livestock, but there are other aspects of that, and that has been generally under the realm of OMAFRA, but there are certain aspects that we would like as a municipality to, or that we have the authority to regulate as well, such as fencing and confinement. So that's something that we're going to be looking at under this new comprehensive bylaw as well. So the bylaw has been in the works. We've accelerated our work on this, and the process that it's at now is that we've been meeting with our key stakeholders, the OPP for enforcement and the Peterborough Humane Society as animal control. And we're looking at revising this bylaw to provide stronger tools for our enforcement bodies. Those tools will include steeper fines for unlicensed dogs. We'll be applying to the Ministry of the Solicitor General for Part 1 offenses under the Provincial Offences Act, which will allow the Humane Society, bylaw enforcement, and the OPP to issue a Part 1 ticket to anyone who's in contravention of the bylaw, as opposed to a Part 3 summons, which has a much longer process and is more involved. The existing tools under the Dog Owners Liability Act, which is a provincial piece of legislation that the OPP enforce, those will continue to be valid options in the light of any circumstances that would invoke that regulation. However, the dog or the animal control bylaw that we're proposing to bring up would have a number of additional enforcement tools to hopefully encourage and have respect for greater respectful pet ownership within the township boundaries. And hopefully that will help alleviate any future incidents. There will also be some orders that we can place on dog owners for muzzling of the dogs, as well as confinement orders. Those are the tools that we have available to us under the Municipal Act. There are additional tools under the Dog Owners Liability Act that the police can access, but we only have limited amount of tools that we can make regulations about. So we're gonna basically maximize out our tools as best we can for our enforcement people.
Now, Brian, can you quickly review what has happened since this incident and the OPP and what the OPP have done and how it sits right now?
Yeah, obviously limited amount of information that we can say. Basically what was published in there was a Peterborough Examiner article, which unfortunately I think had an incorrect date. Hopefully it's since been corrected, but the Peterborough Examiner article did mention that, and it is factual, that the dog owners were charged with an offense under the Dog Owners Liability Act. The OPP have charged them. That is an ongoing investigation, and there is a court date coming. In a COVID world, even in a non-COVID world, the court date is relatively soon in relative spectrum to most court cases. It is obviously not until March, but in a COVID world, we have other court cases that we may not even see court time in 2021. So we'll see what happens with that. And in terms of the Humane Society, they are continuing to be vigilant in terms of any calls to that area. And I would encourage anyone who's watching that if there is an incident where the dogs are at large, that incident needs to be reported to the OPP and to the Peterborough Humane Society at the time of the incident, not afterwards. It needs to be reported right away so that things can happen.
Carl, go ahead with the comment, please.
Thank you very much for the input from Carlos, and thanks, Brian. When would you, with the bylaw that's planned, when could you figure that the open a public meeting could be held and we could look at passing such a bylaw to strengthen our our enforcement authority for this community.
Yep. So we're in the process right now of finalizing the touches to the bylaw. It'll be a very similar bylaw to the one that Selwyn Township passed. There's some tweaks that need to be made because of regulatory changes even since that bylaw was passed. We'll be looking at the earliest is in our next council meeting is January the 5th. Due to the Christmas break with agenda compiling, there may not be the opportunity to get that onto the January 5th agenda, although we're certainly trying to have that. The public meeting can be held on that same date and the bylaw passes subsequent meeting.
Thank you, Carl. Now, Brian, let me play the devil's advocate from the point of view of Carlos and the neighbors, and I certainly get it. We want this bylaw passed right away, and we want this incident looked after right now, tomorrow. That's what I'd want as well. I get it. Brian, tell us why that isn't necessarily the way it works.
Yeah, and unfortunately, this isn't something that I really understood until I came to work for small government or any government organization, is that the wheel of government turns, and it always turns. It just keeps moving. It's not like a private organization where we can make a rule tomorrow. We have regulations that we have to respect as a municipal act. We have to repeal our existing bylaw and pass a new bylaw, and that requires public consultation. And I understand that there's always differing opinions on matters, and that's not necessarily something that we hope for, but that's why we need to have the public meeting so that everyone can have their chance to put their input into the bylaw. What we think may be the most appropriate solution. There may be alternatives that may come up. So we need to allow that consultation to take place. The rushing of a bylaw through may open us for liability purposes as well. And as a township, we need to, especially township staff and council, we need to be very cognizant of not exposing ourselves to excessive liability. And that's something that we're doing by strengthening our bylaw. Is going to improve our position moving forward. So getting it onto our next council meeting is certainly something that we're trying to push for, and is something that can hopefully come to light.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Sheila, go ahead. No, we're not hearing you, Sheila, for some reason. There we go. No, you must be having some technical problems of some kind. You're muted. And now you appear to be unmuted, but we still don't hear you. Carlos, I don't expect you to stand up and cheer for us right now. I totally get it. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Basically, I understand all the process of bylaws, and my respect for all of you. And I think you're doing what you can do, but we need protection today, and not when the bylaw it's passed. We cannot be in our own garden, not our neighbors. They cannot even go to the post box office because the dogs are just at this side. So there must be a way to pass a bylaw, but also give security and protection to the neighbors of this area right from today. It is not acceptable. I understand the procedure of bylaws, and I've been in a lot of committees, so this is fine with me, but there must be also a way to give security and protection so that as a neighbor, you cannot walk your dog, you cannot go with your grandchildren.
That's terrible.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah, it is terrible.
This is unbelievable, and that we are waiting that the next attack happens until we can report and then tell someone this child or this dog has been killed.
Now, if these animals are acting threatening, have people been calling the OPP? And that is certainly the first thing they should do.
Oh, yes, now everyone will do this, but we should be all aware of our responsibility. So I don't want to see a child, an older person, whoever it is. We cannot allow to have, I don't know how many neighbors, the children of Lakeview College and so on, living in fear, not doing normal standard life. And just to take the dogs away until he has a coyote fence in, whatever, to protect everyone, this would be an easy solution. This would be...
No, we hear you, Carlos, loud and clear. And I do hope Brian, as our chief building official and our bylaw person, is keeping his eye on this fencing situation. Sheila, I see your hand.
Sorry, it's a homemade fence. Nothing, I can do the fence like he does, for sure. But this fence, they can easily, if they went through our fence, this fence that is there, it's for those dogs, it's a joke. If you really talk to dog specialists, they say the only way to hold those guys in, it's really to have a coyote fence. And it's clear they have now the smell of blood, of human blood, of dog blood. They will do it again. They have bitten 3 persons.
You're making way too much sense for me, Carlos. I know exactly what you're saying. Sheila, go ahead.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now, yeah.
Oh, perfect, thank you. I'll direct through you my question to Brian. Brian, given all this, if we do manage to get the bylaw and the public meeting scheduled for the 5th, and it's approved, it can be in force immediately. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. The provisions of the bylaw, there is provisions in for the muzzling of the dog. The wording is that any dog that's known to have been vicious, so it has a general. Let me back up for a second. Generally speaking, most bylaws only come into effect the day they're passed, and they only apply to situations that happen in the future.
Yeah.
This bylaw has wording in it that actually does apply to the past, and it is
yes,
allowing for a muzzle order on a dog that is known in the community or in a neighboring community to be vicious. So if we end up with a dog, prime example would be on the Lakefield boundary, that say is on Queen Street, that is known to be vicious, we can actually, as a township, put an order on that dog, even though it's not in our township, that if it comes into our township boundary, that it has to be muzzled. So there's actually some interesting provisions in there.
So could we make every effort to get this set up for? I know it's work, but if we could get this set up for the 5th of January agenda and with a public meeting, and the fact that it can work backwards, I think we have to do everything we can.
ASAP.
It's a terrible situation.
ASAP.
Yes, absolutely.
Carl. You're muted, Carl.
I'd like to ask, what can we do to ensure that everything is done on the 5th, pending something coming out of the open meeting that will delay it? Do you need further support from us, clerical support or research report or support? Or what else can we do to ensure that the whole thing is on the 5th of January meeting?
Can I suggest that we have a motion, if you're willing to pass it, to instruct staff to do everything in their power to make this happen as soon as possible. And if that's the January 5th, then so be it. If you need an emergency meeting tomorrow afternoon, I would do it as well. But I know that's not gonna.
I'll make that motion.
Exactly what I said?
Exactly what you said.
I have no idea what I said, but you got the gist.
I'm sure Martina does.
I think Martina got it. Carl?
I'll second it with a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I guess a comment or condition that I'd like to see, if there's any risk in it not being handled on the 5th, I want to know about it
Right.
like next few days.
Yep. Yeah, we've got to do everything above board. We've got to. It's the way it is, Carlos. But I hope you
Oh, I know how it works.
everything in our power.
But even on Monday, bringing out the garbage, you're afraid.
Yeah, I get it.
You cannot go out with your own dogs in your own friend's garden.
That is terrible.
Yeah.
Okay, final comment from Tom. We're going to move on and try to make this happen. Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, just a couple of things. I know, and I know it's a very, very contentious situation here, and I very much feel for everybody involved. We did have a motion on the floor that we didn't vote on to accept the thing, but that's not a big deal. My question is, and I don't know who can answer this, because these dogs attacked and they attacked humans, never mind other dogs, but they attacked humans. Why are they not quarantined, in a compound until this is resolved? Like that would have been my thought. That would have been the first thing that happened.
Mm-hmm. It's the question we've been asking since this began.
Absolutely.
Have been attacked, and unfortunately, there was 3 weeks before on the same street an incident. Unfortunately, not reported.
We shouldn't even be talking about this. It should have been so cut and dry.
Absolutely.
Okay, Sheila, if I could ask that your motion include receiving the petition so that Councillor Watt is happy there. And Carl, is that okay with you?
Yes.
Receive the petition and the rest of your motion.
I'm good with that.
Martina, go ahead, Martina.
Yeah, the petition was voted on, moved and seconded and voted on.
I kind of thought so, but I wasn't sure. Okay, there's a motion on the floor. We're doing everything we can do here and obeying the rules the best we can. And believe me, we understand.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to call for the motion. All in favor? All opposed? Carlos, thank you for voting on the motion. We appreciate that. Good.
Thank you so much, everyone.
That motion is approved and we thank you. And please tell your neighbors we get it.
And tell them to call the police if anything happens
call the police.
immediately.
We have informed everyone, and we are very vigilant. I don't want anything else to happen.
Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to look
Thank
at
you,
this.
everyone.
Okay, moving ahead to item 9. Other business staff reports. This is the request, yearly request, I might add, from the Kawartha Lake Stewards. Martina, did you need to add anything that's not in the report?
No, it's all before council. There's a request in front of you from the Kawartha Lake Stewards for a $1,000 grant. We've given the same amount in 2020 and 2019, also in 2018. So this is a yearly request that we get from them. They've also included a copy of their annual report as well.
Okay, they do some great work, and they've worked for us for a lot of years. Councillor Watson.
Mr. Mayor, I do appreciate and value the work that they do, and I would move that we continue to support them again this year in that work, and that we grant them the $1,000 that they are requesting.
Do we have a seconder to that? Carl? Any other discussion on the motion? All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. 8th Line Road, North Dummer. This is a request to survey. Martina?
So I'm just going to review this report if that's okay with you, Mr. Mayor. So in January 2020, Council received a request to have work completed on the 8th Line Road North Dummer Road Allowance. A copy of that staff report was attached to this one for your information. At that meeting, Council passed the following resolution. It's Resolution 12/2020, moved by Councillor Watt, seconded by Councillor Landsman, that the report to Council dated December 12, 2019, regarding the proposed work on the 8th Line Road Dummer Road Allowance north of Center Dummer Road be received, and that the applicant be advised that Council will not be making any decision on this matter until an environmental impact study is complete. Since the passing of the resolution, Mr. Gazinski has been working on completing the environmental impact study requested by Council prior to making any decisions. The environmental impact study is scheduled to be completed in April 2021. We've received a request from Mr. Gazinski requesting permission to have the unopened road allowance surveyed from where the open road ends to where it reaches his property at lot 17. That email is attached here as well. The request to complete the work on the unopened road allowance is being considered by council under policy number 18, improvement or opening of municipal road allowances. In this policy, item 6 speaks to the survey of a road allowance being required if council approves the request. In this case, council has deferred a decision pending the EIS and its review by the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority. The report that's before you is recommending that it be received and that the request to proceed with survey work be approved by council while the EIS is being completed and prior to council making a decision on the request to complete the works on the unopened road allowance. And further, that a copy of the survey produced be given to the township in paper and electronic formats. There would be no cost to the township for this process.
Okay, comments or questions from council? You all read the report. Carl?
I'm supportive of the request to have him go ahead to do the survey, but I'm wondering if he's getting good advice regarding the EIS. There's a number of EIS hurdles on this that will have to be resolved, and I'd hate for those to be unsuccessful down the road, and he's done the survey, and all of a sudden the EIS hurdles can't be resolved. So as long as he's getting good advice from somebody, my experience working on the Otonabee Conservation Authority, there's a number of issues here that will have to be addressed somehow, and hopefully he's getting good advice.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Gazinski is working with a firm for the EIS, and he's been in quite a lot of contact with ORCA about their concerns as well. So I have to assume that the advice he's been given is above board and is meeting his requirements. But he is taking a large risk, you're right, by asking for the survey to be completed, because there's no guarantee that that council will make a decision on this in his favor.
That's totally his decision to do so. Yeah. Okay, Heather, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do echo Deputy Mayor Moher's concerns, and thank you, Martina, for clarifying that. I just have a follow-up on that. So the way that our bylaw is, number 18 currently, even if at this point the gentleman chooses to move forward with a survey and subsequently an EIS, and if both of those happen to pass, or the EIS passes, we'll say, we still as a council reserve the right to not choose to open that. Is that correct?
That is, through you, Mr. Mayor, that's very much correct.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And then just one more question about this particular request. Have the neighbors been notified? I know they were notified originally when the application came forward, but are they aware of this this new request that's before us this evening?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, they haven't been contacted about the survey request, but they were contacted with the original request, and they had submitted comments which are attached to the report as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, let's have a motion then to reflect some of these comments so we can move on. Who would like to make the motion? Carl? You're muted, Carl.
Sorry, I would move to allow the applicant to go ahead with the survey at his expense and at his risk. I think we got to somehow get risk into the resolution.
With a reference to the fact that Heather made about it is still council's prerogative for final approval. Yeah, that would be the motion then. Martina, are you okay with that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, would you like me to reread it just to be sure it captures the right information?
And then I'll ask for a seconder. Go ahead.
So that CAO report 2020-2072 dated December 7th regarding the 8th line road allowance north, request a survey be received, that the request to proceed with survey work be approved by council while the environmental study is being completed and prior to council deciding on the request to complete works on the unopened road allowance, that the applicant is advised that this work will be done at his own risk and his own expense, and that further a copy of the survey produced be given to the township in paper and electronic format.
That pretty well is it covered. Heather, are you going to second that motion? Heather is the seconder. We'll call for the vote. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Thank you very much. 9.3, Martina, again, the compensation agreement. Martina, and then, okay, you go ahead first, Martina.
Sure. So through you, Mr. Mayor, this report's coming before you as there was a request from staff regarding the compensation package. The current compensation package for management and non-management staff expires at the end of this year, but the provisions contained therein are in force until the new agreements are in place. Staff representatives have brought forward a request to have the annual increase approved at this time prior to a whole-scale review and negotiation of both of the agreements. An explanation of staff's request is included as well for council, and our Fire Chief Chuck Pedersen is on the line to speak to that if council has questions. I've not had any involvement in the staff discussions. In reading the report from staff, the request, if approved, will avoid a retroactive payment process on payroll, which is quite labor intensive. The increase that staff are proposing is 0.94% as per the OMERS pension index increase. If council wishes to approve this request, there are draft bylaws to amend the existing contracts in the bylaw section of the agenda.
Okay, very clear, right to the point. Chuck, do you want to speak to this? There he is.
Sorry.
Good.
Yeah, I think Martina covered it off. This is an agreement that is typically a 4-year, but because of the benefits and calculations that were asked of council, it was done at a 2-year interval. So the 2 years previous were done on the OMERS pension inflation index, and those numbers are before you. We have obviously a lot of changes happening with office staff and our temporary positions, and we just wouldn't be able to pull all the information together that you want because some of the expertise that worked on that is not available at this time. So this is just to try to get dealing with the compensation so that staff doesn't have to go back and do the numerous calculations on back pay. So that's really what this is about, is bringing forward that cost of living index, if you will.
And 0.9%, less than 1%.
Yeah, so it was the flavor that we looked at before was the OMERS pension inflation index. So that's just following it. It was obviously 2.29 in 2019 and 1.89 in 2020. And now its forecast is at 0.94. So we're just following that schedule.
Okay, that seems very clear to me. Are there any questions, comments, or opinions from members of council over this request? Carl?
I support the recommendation. And I have a comment if somebody seconds it.
You're going to make that motion to support. Is there anyone willing to second that motion? Heather. Okay, go ahead, Carl.
And I believe a few months ago, we will be looking at the overall sustainability of the benefits by September of this year, of 2021.
Okay, anyone? We have a motion on the floor, is duly seconded. Martina?
And just for clarification through you, Mr. Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Moher, are you approving the recommendation that is in the staff report or that is in my report? I just want clarification. I apologize.
It's in your well, yours is asking for direction, and I'm suggesting 0.94. Yeah, I don't know where that is.
That's right. So if I may, the resolution that is in the staff report is that the report be received and that the 2021 salary increase for management and non-management staff follow the OMERS pension inflation index The OMERS pension inflation index for 2021 is 0.94%, and that staff be authorized to implement this change effective January 1st, 2021, and that the compensation package as a whole be brought back to council with the same timeline as resolution 372, 2020.
Is that exactly what you said, Carl?
No, I don't understand the last part of it there regarding the,
So that's the resolution that council had previously passed regarding that a model be brought back to lower the cost of the package and have fiscal sustainability of the plan.
right, by September.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Your motion stands then?
Yep.
And Councillor Watson, you're seconding that motion, okay? And that coincides, Martina, with bylaw number 2020-69, is that correct?
There's two bylaws, one for management and one for non-management.
Okay,
68 and 69.
68 and 69. Okay, the resolution's on the floor. We'll call for the vote, please. All in favor? All opposed? That motion's approved. And if you don't mind, let's bring those bylaws forward and get that out of the way as well. 2020-68 and 2020-69. Who would care to move those bylaws? Carl?
I'll move them, but there's a clerical error on them. It says the inflation index of minus 0.94. It should be plus 0.94
Oh, okay.
for both bylaws.
Typo.
The
Martina,
amended,
you got that?
I've got it. Thank you, Mr.
Okay.
Mayor.
the amended bylaws. I would
And
move them.
Sheila, you're okay with that? Okay, the two bylaws are up for grabs. They have been moved and seconded. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. 9.4, the Resiliency Infrastructure Grant. And we've got Paul Kramer, who is our temporary treasurer. Paul, are we going to see you?
Here I am.
And we want you to feel like one of the family, and we're glad to have you here. And we're going to let you talk about this. Go ahead.
This might be a little bit of a tag team effort with Chuck and I. The report is, as per the recommendations, is to get permission from council to submit a grant application for the project described in the report, which is, I'm kind of calling it the Douro Fire Station Reconfiguration Project. We do not require permission or approval from council prior to submitting this grant, but we felt it would be prudent to do so, that we didn't want to be submitting a project and getting approval on a grant that council would not be on board with. So at this time, we're looking for approval of the project dependent on the successful grant application. However, I think if we weren't successful for whatever reason, at this time, it is my understanding that it is formula based. We have been allocated 100,000. So it's really just ensuring that this project that we're submitting meets the criteria that both the province and the federal government have set out for this grant specifically. I can let Chuck give a little bit more of an explanation on the project specifically, or we can just allow for specific questions on the project. I'm not sure which approach is preferred.
Okay, Chuck, I think it'd be reasonable for you to give us the Reader's Digest. It's not a subject that we're unfamiliar with. It's very needed. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, so I guess this was an opportunity. We're kind of thinking outside the box on this project, referring back to the Greenview review of all of our buildings that was done in, I believe it was April of 2019. So as you're probably aware, but just a quick reminder for those that might not be or remember, or those that are watching, we kind of work out of two buildings from the fire department. One is I wouldn't call it a fire station, but it's a shed with a heater in it that the fire truck sits in. And then we have one that's sitting in one bay of the public works bay. So speaking with our public works operations and working through this project, And looking at the study that was done by Greenview, we feel like we could, I know the report said that we should, tear down buildings and build new ones, and there's some validity there. But we feel like we didn't really look at this project in the way that we're looking at it today. And we think that there's some life that we could add some years to that original portion of the building, because the fire station has to be post-disaster in that original portion of the building, not the addition that was done later in the 70s. It's all concrete, so we can make that a post-disaster building pretty effectively and efficiently, and we can kind of spring some life into that facility. We get the girls and guys that are responding to that hall some under one roof response, proper bunker gearing that's separated from the elements, if you will, and the diesel particulate that we're trying to avoid for them to have. And it would enhance and allow Public Works to come in and use that space for their lunchroom and washroom, which would be all upgraded. So I think that we have some found money here that would add some life to the building and delay eventually, if they were to build a new fire station there, that's what was recommended by Greenview. This would delay that, because as you're aware, there's a lot of buildings that we have problems and we're still trying to sort through those things. So this would just buy us quite a bit of time to try to get some of those other projects done before we have to work with this one. Plus with the fire trucks, timing is good because this is a project that has to be completed before the end of 2021. And we could probably get things lined up and do it in the non-heating season. Public Works doesn't really need that space too much. They can probably live without it during the summer months once their plows are taken off. And the fire truck currently is not in that space. So we could kind of go in there and not have to worry about operations so much, and get that ripped out after the heating season ends and rebuilt before the heating season begins, because no one wants to have frozen fire trucks.
Very well said. Well said, well thought out. Heather, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure who to direct this question to, so through you to staff. First of all, I think it's a great project. I think it's creative. I took a look at the Greenview report from 2019, and I think it's an interesting way to kind of solve a few of those challenges and prolong the life of the building. I'm curious, however, just as the report had indicated that management staff were working together to find a project to leverage this funding. Could you speak just briefly at a high level what some of those other projects were that you may have considered that were a contender for this project, just to give some reassurance that this is the best use of these funds?
Yeah, I'm just looking. Martina, do you want me to handle it, or?
Either or, Paul. I'm happy to speak to some of the other ideas we had.
Yeah, I can start if you want to fill in any blanks. Feel free. So I know one of the project was that was initially bounced around was some of the sidewalk works, but once we dug into the eligibility of the grant, we deemed that sidewalk specifically would not be eligible. The next project was some of the work around, some of the bathrooms in the township building and the rec centers. One of the projects that we were considering is grouping a few items together for a COVID response. And that would include the bathrooms and maybe better entrance at the municipal building. And there was a few other items within kind of the town hall that we were looking at. I think one of the reasons we want to maximize this grant and find a project that's going to get us as close to 100,000 as possible. If it's going to be work that is going to be recommended at one point or another along the way, we don't want to leave money on the table. I would say those are the two main projects. I'm not recalling anything else that really stood out that once this was brought up, I think it was really the best project and best use of funds.
Good. Martina, any holes to fill there?
No, Paul's really covered it. With the sidewalks, one of the reasons why we couldn't apply this funding to sidewalks is it has to be an active recreation package. So you can't just do sidewalks. You need to have bike lanes and
Yeah, right.
other like a whole plan for active transportation. And so that's why just doing sidewalk repair wouldn't work. As for the office and the community centers and other spaces, that work will, in some fashion, will need to be done over the next while, but we also have additional monies that we can rely on for that. And so, whereas this project for the fire hall, public works building, there's really no other pot of money that we have that we can rely on for this without possibly affecting other projects. We can use this money and use the 100,000 to its maximum potential and buy us another 10 to 15 years of life for this facility. So.
And I think what's even more important, and I don't think I need to tell everyone, is our very serious responsibilities to look after the health and safety of our firefighters. And that's something that is extremely at the top of the list. And I don't want anyone forgetting that. Chuck?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, I just wanted to add that I haven't really let the cat out of the bag on this project in case it wasn't something that council wished, but I did speak with the district chief in confidence. And I know that we had a very successful project at Station 5 where the crews there really got in behind the project, and this wouldn't be quite to that extent because we have this funding available, but they assure me that they would be able to work, do some of that nitty gritty work, that the tear outs and some of those things. So it'd be a combination of contractors coming in, a little stimulus funding for those contractors, as well as some in-kind work internally to help that money go a little further.
And our members have proven more than once they're willing to roll up their sleeves, and we need to pat them on the back for that. Okay, we need a little decision here. Paul, is that basically what you're after, is council's blessing to apply for the grant?
Correct.
That's simple. Sheila, are you going to move that? You're muted.
Yes, I would move that the project put forward be backed by council and supported, and that Paul and whoever go ahead and apply for the funding.
And Heather, you'll second that motion?
I will.
I'm
Yes.
sorry, I thought Heather had already made that motion, but
Moved by Sheila, seconded by Heather. Is there any other comment? All in favor? All opposed? That
Mr.
motion
Chair,
is
Mr. Chair, I
approved.
have to leave the meeting for a couple of minutes.
Okay, for the record, at 6:03, Carl is not in the meeting. Thank you very much, both of you. Paul, doing a great job. We appreciate it very much. And Chuck, keep on doing it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along to, we've finished 9.5, 9.6. We're going to have Brian back on the stand. And this is about election signs. Brian, go ahead.
Thank you. So this report is coming out at a request of the County of Peterborough. So the upper tier has been reviewing their signs bylaws extensively, and they have asked council to consider a deliberation on election signs within county roadways within the township of Douro-Dummer. There is a draft resolution included in the report, but to summarize the options, we essentially have three options. Option one is to adopt a new sign bylaw for the township. And that can either be a specific election only sign bylaw, or we can have a more comprehensive look at signs in general. We currently don't have a sign bylaw, so it may be something the council wishes staff to consider. The second option would be to adopt the county standards for election signs, and the township would assume the enforcement responsibility for those provisions on county roadways. And the third option is that we do nothing and we reject the regulation for election signs on county roadways. So those are the options. I'm available to answer any questions. Staff have no position on this matter. There may be financial considerations depending on which option is chosen. And that's something that staff would continue to work with the County of Peterborough with, depending on which option council decides to do.
Okay, very clear and concise. Let me hear from members of council. You've had the report and lots of time to think about it. What is your preference? Good report, Brian. For the record, at 6:05, Carl is back in the meeting. Go ahead, Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Your Worship. This one I'm kind of wrestling with a little bit, to be honest with you. I understand that, a decision on election signs is what's before us today, but we're also looking at kind of a broader enforcement potential of all signs within the municipality. And I feel like we started this process in partnership with the county several years ago, only to end up in the same place where we are today, it seems like, potentially. Looking at the recommendations that are before us, I'd like to see us as a municipality put a proper comprehensive sign bylaw in place. And we look at all of those aspects, including election signs. So we have a fulsome and complete bylaw. So with that in mind, I personally would be in favor of help me out with the wording here on this one. In the three options that we're looking at, Brian, I'm sorry.
It would be option 1E, I guess. It's not really, it is an option there. It's not specifically in the resolution. So the resolution, the draft resolution that was directed by county staff will have to be amended, hopefully by Martina, to reflect exactly what council's wishes are tonight.
Right. So 1B would be to adopt a new sign bylaw, comprehensive, right? Like, so either a specific one or for election signs. I'm thinking of a comprehensive one, and that's it. We don't need to report anything other than that back to county council. Is that what that would imply?
Through your worship, the resolution that county staff have asked us to look at would be, I can read it out, would be, whereas the County of Peterborough Council has referred the regulation of election signs placed on or erected within county road allowances to the lower tier municipality for councils for consideration for regulation by the lower tier municipality. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council consider the available options related to the regulation of election signs placed or erected within county road allowances to adopt a new comprehensive sign bylaw for the lower tier municipality, and further that council directs staff to respond accordingly to the County of Peterborough with council's direction related to the regulation of election signs placed or erected within the county road allowances, and requests the County of Peterborough include council's direction in an appropriate election sign bylaw to be adopted by the County of Peterborough Council.
You don't want to repeat that, do you?
I'd rather not. Beauty of YouTube, we can always just replay this and then get it.
Wow, I know. Okay, well, ultimately, we have to make a decision. Everyone's had it. Sheila or Tom, what's your opinion on it?
Oh, I'll make a comment.
Go ahead.
Just in having read all the sign bylaws that were being recommended on the last go round, I didn't agree with a number of them, and I really don't think I can support going along with the county's take on it.
What's the take that you don't agree with?
Well, the distances, some of the distances I found were unreasonable. The distances from certain locations.
Well, we're getting into pretty good detail there.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. I just.
Okay, well, let's hear a motion from someone who's got a clear direction that we should be going in. No one?
I don't have
Go
a clear
ahead, Tom.
I know there was a lot of back and forth with the last couple of elections where you can put signs, where you can't, what to do, what not to do, even on our township roads and everything. And I think we should be quite honest with you, have something of our own specific to election signs that everybody is on a fair playing field. So we got, and whether we just do it for election signs or a more comprehensive one, that's kind of a council decision. I wouldn't mind seeing one for our township for the whole comprehensive, not only election, but the whole comprehensive. So basically number one.
Okay, anybody else? Go ahead, Heather.
Just a question, Your Worship, through you to Brian. Where do the fees go again? If the county, is the county not collecting licensing fees on this in the proposed bylaw that's coming forward? And if we create our own bylaw, what happens there with fees and enforcement? How does that work?
So that's still to be determined with between township staff and county staff in terms of exactly how this whole process will transpire at the end of the day. I see Deputy Mayor Moher has his hand up. He may have more information than I do, but it's my understanding that the deliberation and the recommendation from the last report, which I was just pulling up, was in June, was that we would only do this if we were going to be compensated for our enforcement activity. So if we're going to be doing work on county roads for the county, then the county needs to pay us for our time proportionate to the fee that they're collecting. So.
Carl, can you add something? You're muted, Carl.
Going to have to get better at this, sorry. When I hear a recommendation to have our own comprehensive, the bucks that was spent at the county level to come up with this proposal must be over the top. There was all kinds of staff time from start to finish. And I'm not sure I would want to get into that at this level. Like, I could support the county and what they're planning to do on their roads. Maybe we just need just a sign bylaw for our own township roads and to include election signs.
Yep.
Maybe that's what we need rather than adopting something here that's because once you get into this, you can be rest assured opinions will come from all over the place relative to it. And I think we got to start somewhere. And just driving down the road there at Crow's Landing or McCracken's Landing to look at all the horrible signs on telephone poles and hydro poles, I think we got to do something to have a vision or mission statement relative to signs in our township. So, but let's not get recreating the county policies and so on. I think we adopt that as best we can, and maybe we just receive this, and maybe at a near future meeting, Brian could put together a recommendation based on thoughts that have been expressed tonight on a going forward basis for Douro-Dummer.
And quite frankly, we need to stop this thinking that the county are the opposition, that the county are the enemy. I keep getting that flavor. You need to remember we are part of the county. We give them a great deal of money every year from our taxpayers to be part of the county. I keep hearing these references that the county are the bad guys. Oh, we don't want to do whatever they say. We got to lose that attitude. Okay, I'm ready for a motion from someone to make some sense out of this, and let's move on. Go ahead, Heather.
For you, Mr. Mayor. On this, I think where I was hoping that we would do is, and I'd be prepared to make the motion that we do option one, and this is what I was trying to get at, where we are doing our own comprehensive bylaw on signs for municipal roads, and that we encompass election signs on that. And I think that's what number one is saying. Is that not what I'm reading here correctly?
Yeah, so the number one option would be that we would develop our own sign bylaw, either an election specific or a comprehensive bylaw, and that those standards would be in place for municipal roads, and that same standard would be held to the county roads, and the county would adopt our standards within Douro-Dummer. So that's basically what that first option is.
And if that's where council want to go, then let's hear a motion.
I think
I
Brian just
will
said
move
it.
that. I you know what, I'm not prepared to move that, actually. I'm still very confused. Where are we at? If we adopt our own municipal bylaw on signs, election or otherwise, on municipal roads, is number one saying that then that is what ends up being the bylaw on county roads? Like the county is going to follow our bylaw on their roads? Or because like to Deputy Mayor Moher's point, there is work that's been done at the county level on this, on the county roads.
Yeah, it's my understanding, and perhaps Worship can correct me if I'm wrong, but that county staff or county council rejected the election sign provisions from the sign bylaw that they were passing. So they do not have any provisions for election signs on county roads under their new proposed bylaw. County staff would still like to see some sort of regulation. So they're gathering feedback from all of the lower tier councils as to what direction we would like to go in. That's basically, so this today is not about deciding whether or not we want to do a comprehensive bylaw for the township of Douro-Dummer. I can still bring a staff report and we can weigh those options. It's if we are committing ourselves to doing something, then they can either follow our rules, we can follow the rules that they already drafted, or we can just do nothing and stay totally out of it. Those are the three options, basically. The county just wants to hear what we want to do about election signs on county roads. They're not concerned at this time about what we're doing with the rest of the township.
Election signs is the big
Yes.
subject. Yep. Okay. Is there anyone willing to come up with a concept here to make a motion?
Well, yeah.
Or do we defer it until we do a little more digging until the 5th of January, Brian? What's the timing on this?
County staff have asked for a response to be replied by December 18th.
Okay.
So I don't know if there is time to, whatever our comment, if our comment today is nothing, then that will be the comment that goes to the county council.
So right now, the comment is do nothing because I'm not seeing the motion. So somebody want to formalize that? Carl, go ahead. You're muted, Carl.
I would move that we do nothing relative to the county bylaw.
Is there a seconder to that? Sheila will second that. Carl, go ahead, speak to the motion, please.
This still doesn't, that still gives county council the authority to go ahead with their bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then I will have a subsequent motion if this passes.
Okay, that motion is on the floor. Anyone want to speak to the motion? Heather, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't, hearing Deputy Mayor Moher's tease about having a second motion, I'm curious, to do nothing is really, but in reading the county bylaw, saying that there won't be any election signs permitted on county roads within our municipality because they're choosing to not do anything. So standalone, I'm not prepared to support that, but perhaps if Deputy Mayor Moher wants to help flesh that out a little bit, I'd be happy to hear it.
Your opinion is clear. Go ahead, Carl.
No, my intention was to have a resolution to have staff come back with an election signed bylaw that
with the elections, yeah.
With the elections of both county and township. So maybe a friendly amendment, Heather, that you could add to my motion would allow you to support it.
Yep. Can you think of a friendly amendment to add that?
It's not my motion to amend, but I would certainly
You can
suggest.
you can amend a motion. Mhm.
Sure. So that we add that staff bring back a report on an election sign regulation, be it regulation. I'll just use that word because I don't know if it would be a bylaw or policy or what.
Okay, is that going to be a
Within our
friendly amendment,
municipality.
Carl, or?
I'll second that amendment.
Okay, so you want that, you can just add it to your motion if you want, or we'll have
I
to vote
don't
on the
think-
amendment.
I don't think Heather preferred it as she preferred
Okay,
it.
we'll vote on the amendment first then. Moved by Heather, second by Carl. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved for the amendment. Now, Carl, the amended motion, go ahead.
Yeah, I move the amended motion.
Thank you. And a seconder. Sheila, Sheila was the original seconder. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Committee minutes, other reports, Committee of Adjustment minutes of the 23rd, Brian?
Sorry,
Yes.
do we need a resolution, Martina, for that?
That through you, Mr. Mayor, that was the resolution.
That was the resolution,
Okay.
Brian.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Are you going to take the night off now, Brian? Item 10.1, Committee of Adjustment minutes from the 23rd of October. Motion to receive those minutes, please. Tom and Carl, all in favor? All opposed? Motion is approved. Planning Committee from November 27 are before you. A motion, please.
I'll
Sheila.
make that motion. Yes.
And Heather? All in favor? All opposed? Motion is approved. County Official Plan Technical Advisory Committee minutes. This is something Martina and or Brian are involved in. Martina?
Through you,
Carl?
Mr. Mayor, that's correct. Both Brian and I have been
Yeah.
attending these meetings.
Excellent. Big job. Carl?
Thanks very much for your attendance at these meetings and keeping an eye on things there. And I'm happy to see that the reports back to council are going to be on a phased basis because there's so much comprehensive detail coming down the pipe on these planning things. And even the most changes to the Conservation Act, there's probably going to be another set of revisions coming from the province here soon. So thanks for hanging in there and keeping us informed.
Okay. Thank you for that. Did we get the motion voted on, Martina?
No, I don't have a seconder.
Okay. Seconder, please. Tom, all in favor? All opposed? Motion approved. Bylaws, we only have two bylaws left, Martina, number 2020-67 and 2020-70.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, 2020-67 is the B bylaw for the building permits, and we already dealt with that one.
Okay, so we've dealt with that as well. That's right. Sorry.
And then 2020-70, I would ask that council deal with once they come out of closed session.
Okay, thank you. Action items under correspondence. The Township of Cavan about protect, support, and recover from COVID-19, Schedule 6. This is the Conservation Authorities Act. Carl?
I would move that we receive that because of the fact that we supported the resolution from Autonomy Conservation on our last meeting.
And it's already been dealt with in the legislature anyway. A motion to receive. Seconder? Sheila, all in favor? Approved. The City of Hamilton about the interim cap on gas plant and greenhouse gas pollution. What is your choice? Receive or support?
Receive it. Make a motion to receive it.
Receive from Sheila. Seconder. Tom. All in favor? All opposed? Motion is approved. Howick Township Tile Drainage Installation Act. Receive or support. Carl?
I would move that we receive and support. We have, well, wait for the seconder.
Seconder to that, receive and support. Anyone wishing to do that? Tom? Okay, go ahead, Carl.
This has been petitioned to the province for quite some time, so we'll have people in our township that take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
like-
Yep. Okay, all in favor?
Oh, sorry.
All opposed? That motion is approved. Township of Georgian Bluffs about Bill 218, Ontario's Recovery and Municipal Elections Act 2020. Receive and or support.
I'll make a motion to receive it.
Receive from Sheila, the seconder. No seconder?
Okay.
Okay.
I'll
Could
second
I
it.
have another motion, please, then?
Oh, Carl, did Carl
Carl?
just,
Yeah, I second it.
Okay. All in favor? Ooh. That is approved. Information items 13.1 is notification from the city about a zoning bylaw amendment. And also from public health about municipal facilities owned and operated by local municipalities. Recommendations. Go ahead, Heather.
Your worship, I'll move to receive both, but I'd like to speak to 13.2 for a moment, please.
Okay, motion to receive the information items. Carl, second. Go ahead. Go ahead, Heather.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So I did have an opportunity to talk to staff, but I wanted to just raise that there were some concerns about our own municipal facilities, namely the Douro Community Center, where we accidentally or were bamboozled into hosting an out-of-town group. And just kind of put some of those rumors, dispel any rumors, but mostly just to comment on that, there's an awareness of that and that staff are working on ensuring that we are able to adhere to the recommendations that are coming forward from Peterborough Public Health. And I'm not sure if our CAO wants to speak as to that any further in any more detail, but I think it's important that the community knows.
I certainly didn't hear any rumors. I have no idea what you're talking about. So, Martina, maybe you can enlighten us.
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Watson is correct. I would use the word bamboozled. I think that is a sad state of affairs, but we had a renter approach us to rent the ice for what we were told was a men's hockey league. They provided a Peterborough address, as we are well aware that we can only rent our facilities to those within the Peterborough Public Health Unit. At the time of the rental, we looked at the contact tracing list. It became very obvious that these were actually minor players, not men's players, and further that they were not from our area. So we've canceled all of our contact with that person, and we won't be renting to them again. And that really sadly taught us a lesson that we have to take further steps to confirm people's association with our area. So lesson learned on that one, but we are taking it very, very seriously.
Well, if that's the action of people during a pandemic, then I guess we're all in trouble. Maybe they need to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Carl?
When you're finished talking 13.2, I have a comment on 13.1.
Okay, we've received them, have we not, Martina? That was an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, I have a mover and a seconder, but we have not
We
voted
haven't
on
voted, so go ahead to 13.1. Go ahead, Carl.
Okay, I'll speak quickly if possible. Why did we oppose this to get the attention of the city that they've closed roads without notice?
Well, I'm open to any motion.
That would be just lowering ourselves to their
I think so. I think so.
to their level. So
Yep. That's the way they talk to us, and I'd rather not talk to the city like that, to be honest. Yeah. Okay, 13.1 and 13.2 are on the board. All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Accounts from October 27th. Martina or Paul, who's going to address that if there's any questions? Or a
Through you,
motion?
Mr. Mayor, either Paul is no longer on the line, but I'm here if there are questions.
Okay, or we can get back to anyone if there's a
Yeah.
certain item. Go ahead, Carl.
I don't need this tonight, but I wonder if we could look at our LLF expenses over the, let's say, a given year of 2020 to get the sort of work that's being done and the amount of charges for each item. I think we do that from time to time to check our legal costs. And the second question was the Johnny in the spot beside the building, is that due to COVID?
Martina?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll address the first question about LLF. Some of the charges that you see on that bill are related to various appeals. And so the township receives those bills, but they don't actually pay them. The money comes from other parties and flows through the township. And yes, Deputy Mayor Moho, you are correct. The Johnny on the spot that is next to the office is because of COVID.
We flushed that one out, Carl.
Yes, thank you.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay, a motion then for the accounts, please. Unless anyone else has something. Tom?
No, motion to receive and pay.
Seconder, please. Sheila? All in favor? All opposed? That motion is approved. Are there any notices of motion? Are there any community announcements?
No.
Okay, I would like a motion then to go into closed session. This is for identifiable individuals, and yes, that's what it's for. Heather, seconder, please. Tom, all in favor? Motion is approved. Okay, we'll probably take about a 3.5 minute break. The recording and the live feed will stop, and following our closed, we'll be back. The minutes, of course, of closed will reflect what went on, and we will be back with the remainder of the meeting, but I do not believe we'll be back on YouTube. It's just to end the meeting, right, Martina?
That's typically what we've done, but if council wishes we go back onto YouTube, I can set that up as well.
Okay, so we're in closed. Tom?
Sorry.
Sorry, we are not yet in
depending-
closed.
We're not in closed yet.
You're still
No,
in open session.
Depending on the outcome of our closed session, do we have to go back on live to do that last bylaw? Or is
No,
that just a formality?
It can be captured in the minutes. That's been our policy. It's up to
Okay.
council. So
Yep, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, we voted to go into closed, right?
correct.
Yes, Kate, we are now officially enclosed, and we'll take a 3-minute break.
3
And
minutes.
we'll
Okay.
turn- If you want to mute your video and audio, please.